Hey, welcome back everybody and happy Friday. Hope we're all having a wonderful end to the work week and getting ready for what is going to be an incredibly active weekend and week following with multiple very high impact storm systems on the way. Now that first storm is already getting going and cranking up over the central part of the country. That likely to bring potentially more than a foot of snow to sections of the Northeast as well as ice in much of the mid-Atlantic, and that will be followed up by a bigger storm system next week with the potential to bring a severe weather outbreak, blizzard conditions, and very large and high wind gusts through much of the country. And I think that one's going to have really high impacts for a lot of folks. And of course, we'll break down both of those for you in today's video. Now, also, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and comment, let me know where you're watching from. Another thing I will add here, I will be going live tonight at 5 p.m. to answer all of your questions, so definitely consider kind of coming back and joining me then for a more in-depth analysis of the storm systems. And again, I'll be able to kind of answer more individual questions than I normally am able to in some of the comments. I think that's about all I've got for you, so let's go ahead and jump on into it because, again, we do have a lot to discuss in today's video. Now on our infrared satellite here, a couple things that we do need to kind of discuss and I would like to point out for you just to kind of keep you in the loop of what is going to affect our weather here down the road. And the first big kind of player on the field here is this big low pressure beginning to spin away here. You can notice, we've got this big area of convection kind of on the right-hand side of it with some snow even following on the upper left-hand side there. So that's this weekend storm. That is what is eventually going to bring, again, all of that snow to the northeast and that ice to sections of the mid-Atlantic. The second piece of energy going to be kind of a little more difficult to see here on your screen, but you'll notice we do have a little bit of a spin here just off the coast of western Canada there, pretty far north in the Pacific. That is eventually going to dive south here and come next week eject out of the Rockies and make a big time storm system with, again, a lot of impacts including potentially blizzard conditions and a severe weather outbreak going into the early part of next week. Now, taking a look at current radar, again, the really only big deal to look at on radar is that first storm system. This is that one we just looked at on satellite, and it looks a lot like it does on radar, like it did on satellite. You can see kind of that almost shrimp tail look to it, indicating this low pressure is beginning to strengthen and will continue to slowly but surely move off to the east and eventually up the coast, and that's where we could get that big time snow again into sections of the northeast. Now looking at watches, warnings, advisories, again, that map is looking a lot more colorful than it has the past couple of days. We've got a lot of winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up the spine of the Appalachia chain into the foothills of North Carolina, Virginia, and up into Maryland, where kind of the highest peaks there have winter storm warnings from Transylvania County and Henderson County, North Carolina. Then we get a little bit of a gap before, again, much of the mountain chain of Virginia and into western Maryland have winter storm warnings up for some snow and ice on the way. Now, further north in there, we have winter storm watches up for much of central Pennsylvania, extreme northern New Jersey, southern New York State, the entire state of Connecticut just about, northern Rhode Island, much of Massachusetts, and southern Vermont and New Hampshire, where snow is going to be a bigger deal up in that part of the country. Again, the icing is going to be more of a concern down in the mid-Atlantic, and then those snowfall totals, a bigger concern as we get up into the northeast and through New England. Now, outside of there, a couple other areas I will circle on your map here. We do have some winter weather advisories kind of scattered around here for some snowfall that we are going to see over the next couple of days, and even some winter storm warnings and advisories back west for, again, some snow kind of moving onshore back that way. All right, now taking a look here, let's go ahead and dive into this first storm system, kind of starting where it's at right now. We'll move through each region, and then we'll take a look at the second storm system to kind of end the video. So that's kind of the game plan here. Let's go ahead and jump right into it, though. Again, right now, this storm is sitting right over the southern Great Plains with that center of low pressure kind of right over the heart of Texas and Oklahoma. Now this morning and afternoon we have seen some snow showers breaking out here through sections of southern Kansas, northern Oklahoma, and northwestern Arkansas there, with rain further to the south. Now, as we go further into this afternoon, expect those snow showers to continue through much of Kansas, Missouri, and into the Ozarks of Arkansas, while to the south, we've just got a lot of very cold rain for southern Arkansas and much of Louisiana, with even a couple embedded thunderstorms that could become severe here down kind of into the bayous and swamps of Louisiana. So definitely watching out for you folks down there. for any severe weather that may potentially fire with this low pressure system. Now, as we go into the overnight, again, just some kind of leftover scattered rain and snow showers on the backside here through Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas throughout the overnight tonight. But by the time we're waking up tomorrow, much nicer conditions in store. Can't rule out a couple snow flurries left over, or maybe even a couple pockets of some snow showers. But generally speaking, things should stay relatively nice going into our Saturday. Now, snowfall totals in these regions, let me move my picture back over again. Most of the snow that's left to fall is going to be right over the heart of Kansas. Now, by the time you're watching this, most of this may have already fallen, but again, could still see another couple of inches. About a dusting to an inch is pretty likely here into the Ozarks of Arkansas as well, as this precipitation continues to move on out. All right, severe weather is going to also be a threat today. We do have a marginal risk up for much of the Florida Panhandle back towards southern Alabama, southern Mississippi, and again, kind of the I-10 corridor of Louisiana. All of these areas have the chance to see a couple damaging wind gusts and cannot rule out a brief isolated tornado either. But again, those wind gusts are going to be the bigger concern here throughout much of this afternoon. And going into tomorrow, that threat continues, this time though shifting down towards the Florida Peninsula. Really from Tampa down towards Fort Myers, Naples, back up towards Cape Canaveral, Lake Okeechobee, and Orlando included in that. Again, isolated damaging wind gust and maybe even a brief weak tornado, not out of the question, but those will really be the biggest concerns with that severe weather setup tomorrow. Alrighty, let's go ahead now and dive into sections of the southeast. Again, quickly running through the impacts here because luckily in this part of the country, impacts won't be quite as bad as some other places. Now this is going into this evening about the time the sun is setting. Again, this big old shield of rain moving on through with a couple embedded thunderstorms into the southern side of that here where we had that marginal risk in place. Those are really going to be the biggest concerns today. Just some heavy rainfall that may lead to localized flooding in some kind of more flood prone areas. And some severe weather, but really more of just a good old rainmaker overnight tonight and throughout the early morning hours of tomorrow. But honestly, by the time we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, we're clearing out through much of the southeast with just some of those leftover thunderstorms here through the Florida Peninsula. And could be some pretty strong storms there off the Gulf as well that kind of try to move on shore towards Tampa and Fort Myers. Those could have some water spout potential. So if you live down that way and you have any cool water spout photos or videos, definitely let me know. Always fun to see those. But again, after that moves on through the Florida Peninsula and we get into overnight Saturday and into Sunday, much nicer weather, although can't rule out some scattered leftover showers there going into the overnight hours of Saturday. But again, impacts in this part of the country relatively tame compared to what we're going to see in other sections of the country. Alrighty, Ohio River Valley, again, another place that impacts won't be off the charts, but we will have some folks here that get a quick burst of some heavy wet snow that could cause some travel issues for just a little bit. We'll go ahead and take a look at that here now. Now this is this afternoon, again relatively quiet for much of this area, but you'll notice that snow breaking out back towards northern Arkansas and sections of Missouri and Kansas. Eventually, that precipitation shield moves northward overnight tonight, and by the time we're getting into about the midnight hour or so here, this evening, you'll notice some snow breaking out overnight through much of sections of the St. Louis metro into central Illinois. Northern Indiana could see some snow there into the overnight tonight. But south of there, kind of really from southern Indiana down into southern Illinois and back towards Kentucky and Tennessee, it's all rain at this point. Still just seeing that rain continuing to accumulate a little bit there, but nothing out of the ordinary for this time of year. Now, as I bring this further ahead into time, though, you'll notice, again, by the time we're kind of waking up tomorrow morning, this is when things get a little more interesting. Some of our models, most of them I will say, have been hinting at a quick burst of some heavy wet snow, a changeover from rain to that heavy wet snow here right through northern Kentucky. And I think some folks here could get a quick surprise of maybe an inch or two of snowfall out of that. And same story goes for some of us folks here in southern Ohio and southern Indiana, where we could have enough cold air and precipitation that, again, we get that heavy wet snow to quickly form. Now, south of there, if you're watching in Tennessee, again, just really all rain for this event. And we'll see if maybe later on in the month we can get a snow event for you folks. But again, just rain this time around. By the time we're getting later on into tomorrow afternoon, still seeing that shield of kind of snow here into northern Kentucky, southern and central Ohio moving on through. Again, could drop a quick couple of inches before eventually that then moves out of the area and up into the northeast. And we will have to watch for, I think, overnight Saturday into Sunday, that lake effect machine tries to crank up a little bit, and we could have some scattered snow showers and snow squalls, or rain showers, and just kind of, yeah, rain showers, I guess, further to the south. But again, most of the snow that we do see will be with that potential burst of snow here going into this overnight tonight and into tomorrow. All right, potential snowfall totals with that. Again, this is going to be a tough forecast, so I don't want you to take this for verbatim here, but should we get a situation like the high-resolution rapid refresh here shows, we could get a quick burst of a couple of inches of snow here into northern Kentucky and southern Ohio. Other models are not quite as impressive as this run of this model, but just know, I think this is kind of the ceiling for the event. And I want to show it to you just because I don't want you to get caught off guard, but that very well could be less of an impactful event than this. And same story goes for you folks back here into Illinois and Indiana. Again, I do think we get some light snowfall overnight. Some of these totals might be a little overdone, might be a little closer to an inch and a half compared to maybe 2 or 3 inches. But nonetheless, still some snowfall on the way for a lot of folks in this part of the country. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and move this on up a little bit towards the Great Lakes region. I know we got a lot of viewers up here too, and I promise I haven't been neglecting you. Just this storm system isn't really your storm. I think the one next week is, but of course you will still be impacted by this one at least a little bit, so let's discuss it. Again, going into overnight tonight, by the time we're waking up tomorrow, we've got some snow falling in the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin here, and kind of really just scattered through much of the Great Lakes region. I think a lot of folks are going to wake up to some snow showers, that likely continuing throughout the afternoon tomorrow with that lake effect machine again cranking up, bringing some pretty nice snowfall to a lot of those northern and western shores of Michigan. And again, these kind of scattered snow showers continue through much of the day Saturday. Overnight, again, another piece of energy kind of swings on through, could enhance some of that lake effect as well. And that likely continues here even into Sunday morning. So again, pretty snowy period for you folks up here as well. Just nothing too out of the ordinary for what you're kind of used to here for wintertime. Now, snowfall totals here, again, a couple of inches, very possible, especially here in the UP of Michigan, maybe even 3 to 6 inches of snow, not out of the question. About 1 to 3 here for northern Wisconsin. And I think the western and northern shores of Michigan, about 1 to 3 inches of snow overall, but isolated spots here that kind of, jackpot a little bit more on that lake effect could see closer to 3 to 6 inches of snow, not out of the question at all. Alrighty, so now that we've talked about those areas, let's kind of dive into some places that I think are going to be a little more impacted by this storm system, including starting here with the Mid-Atlantic, where we could have some pretty big icy concerns for a lot of folks going into our Saturday morning commute. So let's go ahead and break that down for you. Again, today has been very nice. Woke up, it was quite cold for a lot of folks. I know where I live in Charlotte, we got down into the mid to upper 20s. So again, a very chilly night. But luckily for most people, not everybody, but most people in the Piedmont of the Mid-Atlantic, likely we're not going to get back below freezing as this precipitation is moving on through. And you'll notice here it comes. This is overnight tonight. I'd say about 2 o'clock in the morning here, and we've got some rain beginning to move on in towards sections of South Carolina and North Carolina. If you're outside of anywhere really above about 3,000 feet here, I think this is going to start as rain for most folks, especially South Carolina. But look at some of these more wintry colors popping up here on your map in those higher elevations of western North Carolina, from kind of the Brevard area back towards Hendersonville and up north through the Blue Ridge Parkway. Could easily start as some quick snow and then likely changing towards sleet or freezing rain for a lot of folks. And you'll notice by the time we really get into tomorrow morning when the sun's coming up, it's mostly freezing rain for most people in the mountains here. Again, isolated spots maybe as far south as Caesar's Head, Table Rock, Mount Sassafras in South Carolina could see some icing overnight and into early tomorrow morning. And same story through much of the foothills of North Carolina. Now, this model is underdoing it just a tad, I think, compared to other models, but I also think the other models are overdoing it a little bit. So just hang on a second here and I'll show you total ice accumulation. I think that'll do a better job of showing who actually sees the ice. But just know the foothills of North Carolina into the higher peaks, foothills up into Virginia, most likely to see most of the ice out of this event. Now, the good news is, as we go into tomorrow afternoon, by the time we get to about 1 o'clock noon, that warm air will once again take back over. As you'll notice, this low pressure here is tracking pretty far inland and bringing a lot of warm air off the Atlantic. So any ice we do see in the morning should begin to melt, I think, by afternoon. and travel will become a lot nicer. But if you are under one of those winter weather advisories or winter storm watches or warnings in this part of the country, definitely make sure that you're taking those precautions, and please do not travel tomorrow morning, as it could be quite dangerous for a lot of folks. All right, so as we get into tomorrow afternoon, again, we're now just all rain through much of the Carolinas and into southeastern Virginia, but here comes those wintry conditions now up into sections of the northern mid-Atlantic. You'll notice much of western Maryland here getting in on some very heavy snowfall rates. Northern Virginia got some icing and snow ongoing here, and same story into southern Pennsylvania. Now, we'll discuss more of that in those areas here in a second whenever we look at the Northeast, but you'll notice, again, as we go further into tomorrow afternoon, that rain and snow continue to move off towards the north and east with very heavy snowfall rates through much of Pennsylvania, again, extreme western Maryland, the eastern sections of West Virginia, and the higher terrains of Virginia, before I think the mid-Atlantic really clears out here going into Saturday evening, and by the time we're waking up Sunday morning, just maybe some leftover northwest flow snow showers in the mountains. But outside of there, much cooler and drier weather in store here for our Sunday. All right, snowfall totals in this part of the country. Again, this is more of an ice event than anything else, but if you're in the northern mid-Atlantic in these higher terrains of West Virginia, the mountains of Virginia, and western Maryland, could see a couple of inches of snow. Now, a week ago, it looked like this could have been a big-time snowstorm for this part of the country, but we've just kind of downtrended more and more as we've gotten closer. A little bit more warm air has looked likely here, and now we're just down to more of an ice event with a couple inches of snow and sleet, potentially here into, again, the higher terrains of West Virginia and extreme western Maryland. All right, now, again, the bigger concern here that has not downtrended, and in fact has kind of stayed pretty consistent here over the past couple of days, I think, is that icing threat. And a lot of folks here, I think a tenth of an inch towards a quarter of an inch of ice likely for the mountains and foothills of Virginia down into the foothills and mountains of North Carolina, and then kind of getting just right there to the edge of the Piedmont. A place like Greensboro, North Carolina, through the Triad, again, could see a light glazing of ice, but it's really off towards the north and west of there. Same story for Charlotte. I don't think we really see much ice at all, but if you're off towards the north and west of the city, maybe towards the Hickory area, back down towards potentially Shelby, North Carolina, and over again towards kind of Brevard, those areas could see a lot more ice. As for South Carolina, again, could start as a very quick, and I mean like about 30 minutes or an hour of ice here very early tomorrow morning, potentially as far south as Travelers Rest, Chesney, Landrum. But again, more of a rain event than anything. It's places to the north of there that will have these icing concerns. And again, as we get into the most impacted areas here, it could be pretty heavy icing. Anytime you get past a tenth of an inch of ice, that's when things get problematic. And if you get up near a quarter of an inch of ice, that's when things really go downhill, and we could see some pretty widespread power outages and near undrivable road conditions. So take those winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings seriously, and of course, kind of read those to get a better idea of exactly how much ice may be for your area. Alrighty, that's everyone for this storm, except for the one place that's probably going to be impacted the most that we still have to get through here, and that's the Northeast. Now, we have had some interesting model trends overnight. We've seen a bit of a shift in the heaviest of the snow here slightly further north. This has, again, been a bit of a trend over the past couple of days. Again, about 4 or 5 days ago, a lot of people thought this might be a big I-95 snowstorm, and as we've gotten closer, it's slowly shifted more and more off towards the north. But that's not quite for everyone. I do think sections of I-95 are going to get a big-time snowstorm here. It's just not going to be kind of your classic DC, Baltimore, Philly, New York City I-95 snowstorm, but could be a big-time I-95 storm for Boston, down towards Providence, and kind of through Connecticut here. Could see a lot of snow. So let's go ahead and break this down for you. Now, this is waking up tomorrow morning on Saturday. Again, still relatively dry, but here comes that storm system, and by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, could start as a quick burst of snow for maybe Philadelphia, down here into extreme northern Delaware and down through central Maryland. Can't rule out some, quick bursts of snow, but I think it's pretty quickly that this changes over towards more of a rain event. And you'll notice here comes that rain continuing to push northward. Now, this is about 3, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and we've got very heavy snow now into north central Pennsylvania, into southern New York State, getting in on that heavy snow, northern New Jersey, especially like extreme northern New Jersey here, getting in on that snowfall. And again, a lot of these places that looked like might not have gotten a lot of snow a couple days ago, as we thought the storm track was going to be a little further towards the south and east. But as we continue to push this off towards the north, those snowfall totals obviously going to pick up in those areas further north as well. Now, about the time the sun is setting tomorrow, again, still very heavy snow for much of New York State, northern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, and here comes that snow picking up through much of Massachusetts, Connecticut, southern Vermont, and New Hampshire as well, getting in on that snowfall throughout the evening hours of Saturday and into the early morning hours of Sunday. Now, as we've gotten closer towards these high-resolution rapid refresh models, there have been some hints that maybe a little bit of dry air kind of tries to ingest its way into the storm system, and that could cut off some of the precipitation flow. If that happens, we will have maybe some lesser snow totals, especially kind of back here into northern New Jersey and into northeastern Pennsylvania. I think some of you folks, again, could stay snow the entire time, but should this dry air kind of ingest itself, could cut off exactly how long that snow is falling. But places up here towards southern Vermont, New Hampshire, New York State, and Boston, Massachusetts, and back down towards Connecticut and Rhode Island, I think this is going to be a big-time snowstorm throughout the overnight of Saturday into the early morning hours of Sunday, as this low pressure kind of meanders a little bit and kind of really hangs around for much of the overnight and even into much of Sunday, still leftover snow here before it finally pulls away going into kind of the morning hours of Monday. So it could be snowing for some folks really from Saturday night through all day Sunday, and we could get a good 24 to 36 hours of nonstop snowfall. And kind of because of that here, we've got some big time snow totals to discuss. And some of those areas, again, that I think will likely get the highest totals, really I'm thinking right in this kind of corridor that I've got circled on your map. Through much of Massachusetts, southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and kind of southeastern New York State here, I think has the best shot of passing a foot of snowfall. Not out of the question at all, but overall speaking, widespread half a foot to a foot kind of in this circled area on your map. Now, outside of there, if you're kind of right along the coast here of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, down into Long Island and into coastal New Jersey, again, unfortunately, just not your storm. Could see some snow, whether that's on the front side or the back side. Just not really many travel impacts, as a lot of warm air is going to be getting pushed inland. Same story down here through Delaware and the D.C. area, where, again, could start as some quick snow or into some quick snow. Just unfortunately going to be rain kind of all in between. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. Again, if I didn't mention your area, you can pause here, kind of find yourself on the map, and look at what the latest blend of models is suggesting for your area. Alrighty, that's the first storm. Again, a lot to kind of discuss with that one. Let's quickly take a sneak peek at the second storm system. And again, I'm not going to go too in-depth on this one, but I will talk about it more in my live stream tonight at 5 o'clock. So if you happen to make it this far in the video already, you might find that pretty useful as well. Alrighty, so this is Sunday afternoon here. You'll notice we've got some troughing and some low pressure kind of forming here off the coast of New England. That's the storm system we just discussed here, kind of pulling away Sunday afternoon and evening. But here's the bigger story. Back out west, a massive trough kind of dipping down here, and with that, the formation of low pressure. You'll notice this almost bowling ball kind of piece of energy here into the early morning hours of Tuesday here, right over the southern Great Plains. This storm system continuing to strengthen, getting stronger here, and eventually riding up through the Ohio River Valley throughout the day Tuesday and into the morning hours of Wednesday now over the northeast and mid-Atlantic, and finally pulls off up into eastern Canada going into the middle part of next week. Now, we've got a very strong signal for this. Our latest European ensemble members put the bullseye of kind of the peak of this storm system right over the Ohio River Valley here, sometime kind of Tuesday evening going into Wednesday. Kind of hard to read here, but a lot of these members have this below 980 millibars in strength, and that is looking more and more likely, and because of that, we're going to see some big-time problems with this storm. That's a lot of, a very tight pressure gradient, meaning very strong winds, heavy precipitation, and a lot of wind shear in the atmosphere. And because of that, we're going to see a couple of very important dynamic parts of this storm system. The first one, again, I definitely think we're going to see blizzard conditions somewhere. The latest Euro ensemble member kind of bullseye here, best chance of at least seeing 4 inches of snowfall. And again, that wind's going to be blowing just about everywhere here. And big stretch here from kind of St. Louis up towards Chicago, up into Michigan and into southern Canada, or southeastern Canada, I should say, and then back into the higher terrains of the Northeast. I think this is going to be the most likely area to see some sort of blizzard conditions here as this storm system comes on through. Again, though, we'll have to watch the trends. There's still about 5 days here for this to trend one way or the other. Another thing I'm growing increasingly concerned about here is severe weather going into next Monday. A big area of the Gulf Coast from southern Texas all the way through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, likely to see strong storms. That does include the threat of tornadoes here. And then that shifts off towards the east going into our Tuesday. I know a lot of folks in the Carolinas have been looking forward towards some snowfall, but we could have severe weather, again, including the threat of tornadoes on Tuesday afternoon here. For much of kind of central and southern South Carolina, central and southern Georgia, much of Florida, and even coastal North Carolina could get in on some of that severe weather. And the final thing I'll point out here are wind gusts. Latest models are indicating very strong winds possible with this storm as well. Again, potentially gusting in that 40 to 50 mile an hour range for a big section of the country. And of course, again, we'll get a little more in depth here as we get closer to this event. But up and down the East Coast, as the storm is really pulling up a lot of wind energy off the coast, could see some big time wind problems and power outages, much like we saw back in early December. Could also see flooding like we saw back in early December there, kind of in coastal South Carolina where we saw that. Could see that again, maybe somewhere else here, not out of the question. So again, we've got a very active period of weather ahead. Some folks in the Northeast could have, a foot of snow by the time they're waking up Monday. And by the time that's done, they could have all that snow getting blown around like crazy come next Tuesday or Wednesday. So just very active weather and a very active month. So again, I'll ask you one more time, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. We're getting a lot of traction here the past couple weeks. Have been very impressive. And if we could hit 10,000 subscribers, I know it's a lofty goal, but if we could hit it by the end of January, that would be super cool. And I think it's very doable, just considering how impressive the growth has been already over the past month or so. Alrighty, well, that's all I've got for you today. Again, I will see you again tonight if you join me for that live stream at 5 o'clock, where I will take all of your questions and do my best to answer those. With that said, though, I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, and I will see you all tonight.